Well, President Trump signed an executive order that will provide some tariff relief for the auto industry. For more, we're bringing in now Aaron Keating, executive analyst at Cox Automotive. Aaron, it is great to see you. So Trump stepping in here, taking steps to soften the impact there of these auto tariffs. It was a bit complicated, Aaron. I'm curious, first, just to start, high level, your thoughts, your reaction.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he hasn't declared it officially through any kind of formal notice, but we've heard that it looks like there's going to be some content reduction or price offset for manufacturers that are actually assembling in the US, where they'll be able to offset 3.75% of the price for parts that are foreign parts. So remember, there's a couple of different ways the tariffs are being applied. Some are if you have a completely assembled vehicle entering the country, that's the 25%. And then there are the vehicles that are assembled here, but are going to be paying for automotive parts that are coming into the country to build those cars. That's where he's looking to potentially offset some of the cost. But at 3.75% and then down to 2.5% next year and then gone in the third year, we're not necessarily anticipating this to be a huge relief, although any cuts to tariffs will count.
So I was interested in, you're kind of leading me there, Aaron. If I was a CEO and I was running an auto company, how I would be thinking about this, whether I would be breathing some giant sigh of relief, or would I be thinking, okay, I'm just going to, listen, I was thrown something, I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now they're going to be happy with anything that's thrown their way because it's a complicated calculus that they're all having to do. And anything certain, more importantly, anything certain, something that's going to be dictated and stays so that they can start to do some real financial planning around what might happen in the future, I can imagine that they're happy about. But this particular break is, again, just on the vehicles, the parts that are going into vehicles. Just keep in mind that there has been no mention about vehicles parts that are coming into the country that would perhaps be for those that need to repair their vehicles. All of those parts still being imported would be theoretically hit with the full 25%. And that, of course, will matter to anyone who owns used vehicles or has a car that they might need to get repaired sometime soon. And then furthermore, there was some talk around not stacking. Well, theoretically, a car that's coming in fully assembled may not have been subjected to the stacking tariff of steel and aluminum either ways, so there's not really a whole lot of give there either. So it's a little bit confusing. I'm anxious to see how the president actually fills out some of the holes that we have right now. We expect him to do that around 6 o'clock tonight, but it's not overwhelming me with a lot of great news from a bottom line perspective.
If I'm running one of these car companies, Aaron, I'm running GM, I'm running Ford. Bottom line, am I bringing back more manufacturing here to the States? Because that, of course, is Trump's goal here, right? That's what he wants.
Yeah, I mean, we've said all along, every automaker has been heavily invested in the United States, and we expect that there are going to be more investments in the country. It's one of the largest automotive markets in the world. And we do anticipate that assembly might be more possible, quicker. Building up our parts supply chain here in the United States, that's a little tougher to imagine that we would be able to reshore as many parts in manufacturing that could really offset this whole tariff imposition here. But should I expect to see more assembly coming into the United States? Sure. Will it be, again, enough to really offset what the goals of the president really hopes to attempt by this? I'm not sure that I think it's going to be a wash, if you will.
Aaron, I'm curious, if you look at the American automakers, Ford, GM, Tesla, are there certain names that are more relatively well positioned against this tariff threat than others that are selling a lot of what they're making here?
Right. Well, so it's interesting you say Tesla, because we do know that they are one of the most quote unquote American-made vehicles in the country, but their volume is relatively small, considering that they only sell electric vehicles, and we know that they only currently make up about 8% of sales total, electric vehicles total, in the United States. Ford certainly is a little bit more well-positioned, we think. Stellantis just behind that, GM just behind that. With GM specifically, we know there's some challenges because some of their more affordable, popular volume models are actually imported currently. But we do anticipate that they will, make every effort to try to avoid having to put a lot of cost onto those particular models, especially given their popularity and where they sit within their portfolio. And then, we can't forget that Honda, Toyota, We have several foreign automakers, if you will, that have substantial assembly plants here in the United States and are almost on par with some of our domestic automakers.
Do you think those foreign car makers, Aaron, are they going to bring even more? Would you expect them to bring even more manufacturing here, remain on Trump's good side? I mean, and after all, I mean, they can't obviously ignore the American market, right? Too big, too lucrative.
Sure. They can't, no, they can't ignore it for sure. And I do think that you might see some swapping out of production. We've already heard that, for instance, Hyundai is saying, okay, well, we're not going to necessarily put the Tucsons that we need in Canada. We're not going to pull them from our US supply. We're actually going to bring those over from Japan. I don't think that that means that now there is, quote unquote, more production happening. It just means that we might be transitioning those Tucsons that were originally manufactured here to go into Canada might now stay here in the US. But again, I think every automaker has a vested interest in making sure that they can cater to this market. The profitability in this market is arguable, and they can't ignore it. And we know that Nissan, for instance, is looking at pulling back up into operation more shifts so that they can get more vehicles going here in the United States. So I think we'll absolutely see an increase in activity. Again, it's anyone's guess, and it's probably a 5-year time horizon before we really see what has moved the needle from a production coming to the United States perspective.
Aaron, so good to have you on the show today. Thanks so much for your time.